Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is another March Mystery Madness video. Today is daylight savings time. Now, I live in a province in Canada that does not follow daylight savings, so it doesn't affect us, but of course it affects friends from other provinces and other states, so we're very aware of when it is daylight savings time. So I thought it would be really fun to do a short video about books where time is an important factor, since this is daylight savings time. So books where time has been manipulated maybe by the killer, or just in some way time is a really important factor in the mystery. But before we get to that, I need to give you the answer to yesterday's My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. The clue was, which Lord Peter Wimsey novel is set in Oxford and doesn't include a murder? And the answer is Gaudy Night. Dorothy L. Sayers wrote Gaudy Night in 1935. And in this book, Harriet Vane goes back to her old college in Oxford for the Gaudy celebrations. And I don't really know what that means. But anyway, so she's there for that, and she discovers while she's there that there's been vandalism and poisoned pen letters and just all kinds of nasty things happening. Lord Peter Wimsey shows up, and so this was a great one in the series, but it does not include a murder. So, Gaudy Night by Dorothy L. Sayers. Stay tuned to the end of this video for the next My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. Mysteries where time is a factor. The very first one I thought of was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. She wrote this in 1926. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to give away any spoilers if you haven't read this yet. But in this book, the killer confuses the time of death, and so that's why I thought this would be a great one to mention for daylight savings time. So I'm going to read to you from the last time the victim is seen. So the victim obviously is Roger Ackroyd, and this book is a Hercule Poirot, and it's narrated by the village doctor, Dr. Shepherd, and so he's been visiting Roger Ackroyd. The letter had been brought in at 20 minutes to 9. It was just on 10 minutes to 9 when I left him. The letter still unread. So there's very specific times given there of when the doctor left Roger Ackroyd. Then it was 10:15 as we went up the stairs. He's talking about him and his sister at their house. This is the same day. I had just reached the top when the telephone rang in the hall below. "Mrs. Bates," said Carolyn immediately. "I'm afraid so," I said ruefully. I ran down the stairs and took up the receiver. "What?" I said. "What?" "Certainly, I'll come over at once." I ran upstairs, caught up my bag, and stuffed a few extra dressings into it. "Parker telephoning," I shouted to Carolyn, "from Fernley. They've just found Roger Ackroyd murdered." So timing there, that's very important. The letter had been brought in at 20 minutes to 9. It was just on 10 minutes to 9 when I left him. He gets a call at 10:15 that Roger Ackroyd has been found murdered. Another book where time is important to the story is Death in 5 Boxes by Carter Dickson from 1938. I've just read this book and I really enjoyed it. And in this story, the killer is revealed through the timing given in a statement from a suspect who is subsequently poisoned. So the suspect says in his statement, now this isn't a statement to the police or anything, he just wrote this out, and it was found after he died. So he's talking about someone who has left this apartment building. This person started walking very fast down Great Russell Street in the direction of Southampton Row. That was the direction I was going anyway, so I followed. From Southampton Row, this person turned into Theobald's Road, and I had an idea this person must be making for Gray's Inn, as I was. I was right. He was going to the solicitor's office. He, or it might have been a she, what do you think? I say that for convenience. Went down a little court behind the building. Then the person climbed up a fire escape. This happened at 15 minutes past 12. The person went to a certain window and seemed to be turning back the catch of the window with a knife. Then the person went through the window and came out 2 minutes later and got away. He goes on to say, I went up the fire escape myself. And he talks about going inside and what he found. And he said, it was 12:30 when I left. A night watchman saw me and started a row, so I had to duck. This delayed me. It takes nearly 15 minutes to walk from Gray's Inn to that place in Great Russell Street, and I was delayed too. It was 10 minutes to 1 before I got back. So there's some very important timing in there, and so for the observant reader, they will that should help them discover who the killer is. Next up is Death and the Dancing Footman by Ngaio Marsh. She wrote this in 1942, and it is one of her Roderick Allen, Inspector Allen books. So in this one, there is a footman who works at the house where the murder occurs. And the footman ended up setting a limit to the time when the murderer could have left the scene of the crime. So, on page 176, we discover Thomas, the footman, who presently appeared wearing the air of one who has crammed himself hastily into his coat. He was a pale young man with damp waves in his hair. Evidently, he had been primed by caper, for he was not quite able to conceal a certain air of avidity. He answered Jonathan's questions promptly and sensibly. Yes, he had met Dr. Hart in the hall as he brought up the tray. Dr. Hart came out of the boudoir as Thomas walked up the passage and into the rear of the hall. He was quite positive it was the boudoir. He noticed that the lights were out. He noticed light coming from under the door into the smoking room. Before Thomas entered the library, Dr. Hart had reached the stairs and had turned on the wall switch belonging to the stair lamps. When Thomas came out of the hallway, Dr. Hart had reached the visitor's room flight. Thomas stayed in the hall. He locked the front doors, made up the fire, and tidied the tables. In answer to a question from Mandrake, he said that he heard music from the radio in the smoking room. What sort of music? Asked Mandrake. Beg pardon, sir? Did you recognize the music? Boomsa-daisy, sir, said Thomas unhappily. Well, go on, said Jonathan. You went away then, I suppose. No, sir. What the devil did you do with yourself hanging about the hall? Demanded Jonathan, who was beginning to look extremely uneasy. Well, sir, excuse me, sir, you what? I went through the movement, sir. Hands, knees, in time to the music, sir. I don't know why, I'm sure, sir. It just came over me. Only for a minute, like, because the music only lasted a very short time, sir, and then it was turned off. So this is why it's the dancing footman, because he stops in the hallway when he hears the music and he dances. Allen says, this is the place, I see, to introduce Thomas, the dancing footman. Thomas sent a limit to the time when the murderer departed. So, Death and the Dancing Footman, Ngaio Marsh. And finally, Agatha Christie's The Seven Dials Mystery from 1929. As a practical joke, the group of young people leave 8 alarm clocks in Jerry Wade's room. So it's a country house, there is a whole bunch of people there for a visit. In the end, the latter won the day. The clocks were set to go off one after the other, starting at 6:30 a.m. The rhythmical breathing of Gerald Wade could still be heard, but drowned, smothered, and buried beneath the triumphant, impassioned ticking of Mr. Murgatroyd's 8 alarm clocks. The morning the clocks are set to go off, Jerry is found dead in his bed. As he turned to leave the room, his glance swept the mantelshelf and he stopped in astonishment. The alarm clocks had been ranged along it neatly in a row. He looked out sharply. Ronnie was waiting for him. "Looks very peaceful and all that. Rotten luck on him," mumbled Jimmy. Then he said, "I say, Ronnie, who arranged all those clocks like that in a row?" "How should I know? One of the servants, I suppose." "The funny thing is," said Jimmy, "that there are 7 of them, not 8. One of them's missing." "Did you notice that?" Ronnie made an inaudible sound. 7 instead of 8, said Jimmy, frowning. "I wonder why." The 7 Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie. So those were just a few fun examples to show you of how time can be used in a mystery. Sometimes the killer does things to confuse time of death. Sometimes a killer will do things to arrange an alibi. So have you read any books like this where time is an important factor? Maybe the killer left the body on a slab of ice or in a freezer in order to try and confuse time of death. Let me know down in the comments below of mysteries you've read where time is an important factor like this. And before I say goodbye, here is the next My March Mystery Madness Mind Bender. Name the small town detective who avoids advancement, overlooks, and often participates in poaching, and lets his dog and wild cat ride with him in his police vehicle. Thanks for watching, and join me tomorrow for another My March Mystery Madness video. Bye.